Do you ever look at someone, seemingly unremarkable, and wonder what unseen depths lie beneath the surface? What hidden talent, what profound wisdom, what quiet strength might reside within the person society has chosen to overlook? It is a question that gnaws at the edges of our perception, a challenge to our often superficial judgments, and it is a question at the very heart of Tanya Willis's story, a woman whose true inheritance was not found in a will, but in the enduring spirit of her own quiet resolve. Tanya grew up in the verdant, rolling hills of Vermont, a landscape that mirrored her own soft-spoken nature, yet her inner world was often a place of profound solitude. Adopted into a family that, despite their best efforts, never quite made her feel truly their own, she moved through her childhood as if tethered by an invisible, yet perpetually taut, thread. She was present, she participated, she smiled when expected, but a fundamental sense of belonging, a deep-seated knowing that she was inherently part of something, remained elusive. This feeling only deepened with the passing of her adoptive parents. Their deaths brought not only profound grief, for Tanya truly loved them in her own way, but also a stark, painful revelation that cemented her long-held fears. She had been entirely excluded from their will. It was a cold, legalistic pronouncement that felt less like an oversight and more like a final, definitive statement of her peripheral place in their lives. The emotional exclusion she had always sensed was now etched in black and white, leaving an ache that no amount of quiet resilience could fully soothe. The grand estate, once a place she called home, however conditionally, was now being liquidated, its contents to be auctioned off to strangers, a final, public erasure of her connection. It was a cruel twist of fate, a brutal irony that stung with every newspaper advertisement and whispered conversation. Yet, amidst the rising tide of bitterness that might have consumed another, Tanya found a different kind of resolve. She would return to that estate, not as an heir, nor even as a mourner seeking closure in the traditional sense, but as a buyer. She held a singular, quiet purpose, a burning desire not for wealth, nor for recognition, but for a piece of the past that held an almost sacred, yet entirely personal, significance to her, an item that no one else would understand the true value of. Her hands, calloused from years of quiet work and tending to her own small garden, trembled slightly as she clutched the faded, crumpled newspaper clipping announcing the estate sale, her decision firm, her heart a mixture of trepidation and an unyielding, silent determination. The morning of the estate sale dawned crisp and clear, a bright autumn sky belying the muted sorrow and thinly veiled greed that permeated the air. Tanya arrived early, a solitary figure amidst the growing throng of antique dealers, curious neighbors, and distant relatives, all circling the property like vultures awaiting their feast. She wore a simple, practical jacket, her hood pulled low, a deliberate attempt to fade into the background, to remain unobserved in a place where she had always felt intensely scrutinized. The sprawling, colonial-style house, once filled with the muted echoes of her own childhood, now hummed with the impatient chatter of strangers. Every object, every piece of furniture, every forgotten trinket was catalogued, priced, and laid bare for public consumption, stripped of its personal history and reduced to a mere commodity. As she navigated the crowded rooms, a familiar face emerged from the din. Her cousin, Martha, a woman whose sharp eyes and sharper tongue had always found a way to underscore Tanya's adopted status. Martha, resplendent in a designer coat and an air of self-importance, approached, her smile a thin, painted line. "Tanya," she chirped, though the word held no warmth. "I didn't expect to see you here. Come to watch your inheritance disappear?" Her voice, though low, carried a sting, deliberately public. Beside her, Mr. Blackwood, the stoic estate executor, nodded curtly, his gaze dismissive, confirming Tanya's peripheral existence in their world. Tanya offered a polite, almost imperceptible nod, her gaze unfazed by their thinly veiled contempt. "I'm merely here to observe," she replied, her voice soft, yet holding an inner firmness that belied her quiet demeanor. Her eyes, however, weren't lingering on the grand piano or the antique china, items that would fetch high prices. Instead, they were fixed on a dusty, forgotten corner of the overgrown garage, where, tucked away behind stacks of old gardening tools and forgotten lumber, sat a heavily worn wooden chest. It was unremarkable in appearance, its surface scratched and dull, its edges softened by years of neglect. To anyone else, it was junk, fit only for kindling. But to Tanya, it was a relic, a silent keeper of a cherished, almost whispered, memory. She recalled, with a poignant clarity, her adoptive father, a man of few words but deep integrity, sitting beside it, his large, calloused hands running over its rough surface, a rare, fleeting moment of shared tranquility that had etched itself into her heart. It was this unassuming chest, steeped in quiet history and personal resonance, that had drawn her back to this painful place, this time not as an unwanted guest, but as a determined seeker of her own truth, her own invaluable piece of the past. Among the crowd, an observer unlike any other moved with a quiet, analytical grace. Eleanor Vance, a formidable figure in the world of high-end art restoration and bespoke antique dealing, possessed an uncanny ability to see beyond surface appearances, to discern true value where others saw only age or disrepair. She had arrived at the estate sale primarily to acquire a rare 18th-century French armoire that she knew would command a hefty price at auction. Her initial assessment of the general attendees was one of detached amusement, a typical mix of eager buyers and casual onlookers, all driven by predictable desires. However, as she navigated the crowded aisles, her sharp eyes caught a fleeting interaction near the garage entrance. A well-dressed woman, Martha, speaking with palpable disdain to a quiet, almost unassuming figure with a hoodie pulled low. What struck Eleanor was not Martha's obvious contempt, but the quiet dignity of the other woman, Tanya. There was no outward reaction, no flinching, no retort, just a calm, steady gaze that spoke of an inner world far richer than her modest attire suggested. Eleanor's interest, initially a flicker of curiosity, intensified as she watched Tanya. While others jostled for position near the more prominent pieces, Tanya drifted toward the back, her attention fixated on a grimy, forgotten wooden chest. It was an item Eleanor herself would have dismissed as utterly without commercial value, a relic of utility, not artistry. Yet Tanya's focus was singular, almost reverent. Her eyes, beneath the shadow of her hood, scanned the chest with an intensity that suggested not mere sentimentality, but a deep, almost intuitive understanding of the object. Eleanor, ever the astute observer of human behavior and hidden potential, found herself drawn to Tanya's quiet presence, her unusual concentration. She sensed a profound connection, a silent language spoken between the woman and the forgotten wood. The auctioneer, a booming man with a practiced patter, began the proceedings. The highly coveted armoire went first, followed by several other impressive pieces, each commanding enthusiastic bids. Finally, almost as an afterthought, the auctioneer pointed toward the garage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a rather rustic item, a humble wooden chest. Perhaps a project for the ambitious handyman, or simply for firewood. A ripple of polite laughter spread through the crowd, a clear indication of the chest's perceived worthlessness. The auctioneer sighed, bracing himself for a swift, unremarkable conclusion, entirely oblivious to the quiet drama that was about to unfold. The auctioneer's voice boomed. Starting bid for this rustic piece, $50. A few hesitant murmurs, then silence. Martha, still hovering nearby, let out a disdainful snort. $50 for a pile of splinters? Someone's desperate for kindling. Her words hung in the air, a cruel whisper designed to humiliate. Tanya, however, remained unaffected. Her gaze never left the chest. 55, she stated, her voice surprisingly clear, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. A few heads turned, surprised that anyone would offer anything for such an object. 60, came a bored voice from the back, likely someone trying to be amusing. Eleanor, watching intently, noticed Tanya's hands, not clenched in anxiety, but resting gently against her sides, fingers splayed as if absorbing information from the very air around her. 65, Tanya responded, her voice unwavering, a quiet declaration of purpose. A ripple went through the crowd. This wasn't a joke bid, this was serious. The auctioneer, sensing an unexpected, if meager, contest, gained a spark of enthusiasm. 70. Another bidder chimed in, a man who seemed more interested in prolonging the bizarre spectacle than in owning the chest. Tanya's eyes narrowed imperceptibly, not in anger, but in a focused determination. Eleanor observed the subtle shift in Tanya's posture, the way her shoulders seemed to straighten, almost imperceptibly. There was a quiet power radiating from her. 75, Tanya declared, her voice now holding an edge of steel. The man hesitated, then scoffed, withdrawing from the bidding. A profound silence descended upon the onlookers. Who was this woman, so intently focused on a piece of junk? Going once, going twice. Sold. To the lady in the hoodie for $75. The auctioneer slammed his gavel down, a note of bewilderment in his tone. Tanya nodded, a flicker of something akin to quiet triumph in her eyes. The murmurs erupted again, louder this time, filled with surprise and thinly veiled judgment. $75 for that? Someone whispered, followed by hushed laughter. But Tanya paid them no mind. Her world had narrowed to the dusty chest, now finally, definitively, hers. Eleanor Vance, standing slightly apart, felt a surge of professional curiosity mingled with an almost philosophical intrigue. This was not about money, not for Tanya. This was about something far deeper, an unseen language spoken between a person and an object, a language Eleanor instinctively recognized, for she, too, understood that true value often lay hidden from the casual glance, waiting to be rediscovered by those with the patience and insight to truly see. As the auction concluded, Tanya moved with quiet purpose toward the back of the garage to claim her newly acquired chest. The moment she laid her hands on the rough wood, a profound sense of rightness settled over her, a feeling more valuable than any inheritance. But her peace was short-lived. Martha, her face contorted in a mixture of disbelief and smug derision, blocked her path, Mr. Blackwood hovering stiffly beside her. Well, well, Tanya, Martha sneered, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Spending your hard-earned money on this? I always knew you were peculiar, but to waste $75 on a worthless piece of junk when you have nothing else, it's simply pathetic. Mr. Blackwood merely watched, his expression cold and unyielding. Tanya met Martha's gaze directly, her soft voice carrying an unexpected strength. Worth is not always measured in dollars, Martha. Sometimes, value is found in history, in quiet beauty, in the stories an object carries, unseen by the casual eye. Just then, a clear, authoritative voice cut through the tension. Indeed, some of the greatest treasures are often overlooked. Eleanor Vance stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. Her gaze was sharp, assessing, but devoid of judgment. She looked from Martha's indignant face to Tanya's calm one, then settled on the chest. May I ask, what drew you to this particular piece, if not its apparent monetary value? Tanya hesitated then, sensing a genuine curiosity in Eleanor's eyes, a rare quality among the acquisitive crowd. She nodded. With a quiet grace, she knelt beside the chest and slowly lifted its heavy lid. There was no hidden cache of jewels, no stacks of forgotten money. Instead, nestled within were a collection of old, well-worn hand tools, chisels, planes, a mallet, each handle smoothed by years of use. Beside them lay several small, rough-hewn blocks of unpolished wood, seemingly scraps. Martha let out a derisive snort. Tools? And firewood? You spent $75 on that? I knew you were crazy. But Eleanor's eyes, usually cool and discerning, suddenly gleamed with an almost childlike wonder. She reached in, her fingers lightly touching the aged tools, then the raw wood. These. These are extraordinary. The craftsmanship of these tools. And this wood, it's ancient, perfectly preserved. You have an eye, young woman. A very rare eye. She looked up at Tanya, her expression shifting from curiosity to a profound realization. Tell me, what do you see in these? Tanya, emboldened by Eleanor's genuine interest, began to speak, her voice gaining a quiet passion as she described the language of the wood, the subtle grain patterns, the potential hidden within each raw piece, the history etched into the tools. Eleanor listened intently, a faint smile playing on her lips. Then, a decisive glint entered her eyes. My name is Eleanor Vance. I own Vance Artisanal, a bespoke furniture restoration and creation studio. I believe you possess a gift that is desperately rare in our world. I have an unconventional offer for you, Tanya Willis. Eleanor's words hung in the crisp autumn air, an unexpected lifeline cast into Tanya's quiet, uncertain world. Vance Artisanal, Eleanor explained, her voice clear and precise, is not merely a business, it's a pursuit of perfection, a resurrection of forgotten beauty. We specialize in bringing antique furniture back to life, but more than that, we create new pieces that embody the soul of the old, using sustainable, often reclaimed, materials. The problem, Tanya, is finding artisans who truly understand wood, not just its mechanics, but its history, its very soul. They can learn the techniques, but they can't teach intuition. She gestured towards the old tools and raw wood Tanya had bought. I saw the way you looked at that chest, the way you spoke of the wood's language. It was not just sentiment, it was a profound understanding. It's what I've been searching for. Eleanor's gaze intensified. I want you to come to my studio. Not as an employee in the traditional sense, at least not initially. I want you to experiment. To take that chest, and anything else that speaks to you, and see what stories you can unearth, what beauty you can reveal. It will be a probationary period, yes, but a well-paid one, with resources at your disposal. Tanya stood stunned, the words echoing in her mind. It was a leap of faith, an offer too extraordinary to refuse, yet so far removed from anything she had ever known. Martha, who had listened with growing indignation, finally burst out. Experiment? You're offering this peculiar girl, who just bought junk, a job at your fancy studio? It's absurd. She knows nothing. She'll fail, miserably. Eleanor merely raised an eyebrow at Martha, a silent dismissal more powerful than any retort. Tanya, taking a deep breath, looked at Eleanor, her eyes shining with a nascent hope. I accept, she said, her voice barely a whisper, yet resolute. Martha scoffed, turning away in a huff, muttering about fools and their follies. The next day, Tanya found herself standing before the gleaming glass facade of Vance Artisanal, a world away from the dusty garage and the judgmental whispers of her past. The studio was a cathedral of craftsmanship, gleaming machinery, sleek workbenches, the faint scent of exotic woods and fine polishes. It was pristine, professional, and utterly intimidating. She clutched her worn bag, containing the old tools and a few personal items, feeling like a misplaced pebble in a meticulously curated mosaic. The vibrant, bustling atmosphere, so unlike her quiet Vermont life, made her feel profoundly out of place, a hidden gem still buried beneath layers of self-doubt. She felt the weight of expectation, not just Eleanor's, but her own, a quiet burning desire to prove that she was indeed capable of this magnificent, unconventional leap. The initial days at Vance Artisanal were a crucible of quiet tension for Tanya. Eleanor introduced her to the small, elite team of artisans, each highly skilled, each possessing a distinct air of professional pride. Among them was Mark, the lead craftsman. a man whose hands sculpted wood with precision and whose eyes initially held a cynical skepticism towards Tanya. He looked at her simple attire, her quiet demeanor, and the old chest she had brought in, and he clearly dismissed her as an amateur, an indulgence of Eleanor's. So the new protégé prefer ancient tools to modern machinery? Mark remarked, his voice laced with thinly veiled derision, as Tanya began to meticulously clean and examine her old wooden chest, preferring the familiar, worn tools from within its own depths to the gleaming power tools around her. Tanya merely offered a small, polite smile, her focus unwavering. She didn't engage in argument, she engaged with the wood. She spent hours simply studying the chest, running her fingers over its worn surfaces, tracing the faint lines of its original construction, listening, as she often thought, to its silent whispers. She disregarded the conventional restoration methods, opting instead for a painstakingly slow process of gentle cleaning, minor repairs with period-appropriate glues, and a deep, almost meditative, hand polishing that coaxed a subtle, rich luster from the dulled surface. Eleanor observed Tanya from afar, occasionally approaching to watch her delicate work, a quiet approval in her eyes. She saw not a lack of skill, but an abundance of something far rarer, an innate reverence for the material, a patience that bordered on spiritual. One afternoon, as Tanya worked, she noticed a faint, almost invisible seam on the inner wall of the chest. It was too precise to be an imperfection. Following an instinct, she carefully, meticulously, worked at the seam with a small, specialized tool, a tiny chisel from her own collection. With a soft click, a hidden compartment slid open, revealing not gold or jewels, but a small, carefully folded stack of yellowed letters. They were from her adoptive father, addressed to her. His handwriting, usually terse and hurried, was surprisingly tender, filled with apologies for his emotional distance, explanations for his struggles with expressing affection, and, most profoundly, heartfelt declarations of his deep love for her. He had kept them secret, a silent testament to feelings he could not voice. It was a personal vindication, a profound inheritance of love that no will could grant or deny. As Tanya silently read, tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but of a cathartic release, a healing balm to decades of unspoken doubt. Meanwhile, Mark, frustrated by Tanya's quiet success and the attention she garnered, subtly moved her most crucial hand tool, a custom-made scraper, to a different workbench, hoping to disrupt her progress. He saw her as a threat to his established order, a symbol of Eleanor's unconventional risks. Mark's petty sabotage, though frustrating, only served to highlight Tanya's ingenuity and unwavering focus. Discovering her scraper missing, she didn't panic or complain. Instead, with a quiet determination, she fashioned a temporary replacement from a discarded piece of steel, adapting her technique without missing a beat. Her ability to overcome such a small yet irritating obstacle reinforced Eleanor's belief in her unique problem-solving skills. As the days turned into weeks, the once battered wooden chest underwent a profound transformation under Tanya's hands. It was not merely restored, it was reborn. The wood, now glowing with a deep, warm patina, seemed to breathe, its grain patterns telling a silent story of endurance and quiet beauty. Tanya had not just repaired its broken parts, she had breathed soul back into its very being. The hidden compartment, now revealed, was left accessible, a symbol of concealed truths finally brought to light. Eleanor, deeply impressed by the chest's finished state, knew she had found something extraordinary. She immediately arranged for a viewing with one of her most discerning and prestigious clients, Mr. Harrison, a collector known for his impeccable taste and his search for pieces with genuine provenance and profound character, rather than just monetary value. Mr. Harrison, initially skeptical of a restored utility chest, walked slowly around Tanya's work, his expression shifting from detached interest to genuine fascination. He ran a hand over the smooth yet tactile surface, leaning in to examine the subtle joinery Tanya had so meticulously repaired. There's a resonance to this piece, he murmured, his voice laced with wonder. It feels alive, as if it has truly come into its own. While Mr. Harrison admired the chest, Mark, who had been observing Tanya's work from a distance, cautiously approached her. He had witnessed her dedication, her unique methods, and the stunning results. His initial skepticism had slowly eroded, replaced by a grudging respect, and now, a genuine curiosity. How? How do you do it? He asked, his voice rougher than he intended. It's like you speak to the wood. Tanya looked at him, her quiet eyes holding no trace of resentment for his earlier actions. I don't speak to it, Mark, she replied softly, a gentle smile playing on her lips. I listen. The wood tells you what it wants to be, what story it holds. You just have to be quiet enough to hear it. Her simple explanation resonated deeply within Mark, a craftsman who had always relied on precision and technique but perhaps lacked that intuitive, spiritual connection. Mr. Harrison, captivated by the chest and Tanya's story, which Eleanor had shared with him, made an immediate and substantial commission, a series of unique pieces, handcrafted by Tanya, for his private collection, emphasizing her singular vision and ability to infuse each creation with a palpable sense of history and soul. It was a profound validation, not just of Tanya's skill, but of Eleanor's perceptive risk. Tanya's unassuming mastery quickly became the whispered legend within Eleanor's exclusive circle. Her unique philosophy of listening to the wood transformed not only the pieces she touched, but also Eleanor's business. Vance Artisanal, already esteemed, now gained a new, profound dimension, attracting clients who sought not just beauty, but soul, not just antiques, but stories. Tanya's approach, meticulous, patient, reverent, became the studio's signature, setting them apart in a world often driven by speed and superficiality. Eleanor, a shrewd businesswoman with a deep understanding of authentic value, cleverly wove Tanya's remarkable story into the very fabric of her brand. She championed Tanya as an embodiment of hidden potential, a testament to the idea that true worth often lies obscured, waiting for the right eye to perceive it, the right heart to believe in it. Her marketing emphasized human connection, the beauty of imperfection, and the transformative power of compassionate artistry. News of Tanya's burgeoning success, initially a faint rumor, inevitably reached the ears of Martha and Mr. Blackwood. Martha, now visibly unsettled by Tanya's rising prominence, decided to pay an unannounced visit to Vance Artisanal, her face contorted in a forced smile, an ill-fitting mask of cordiality. Tanya, darling, she gushed, attempting a theatrical embrace. We're so incredibly proud of you. Who would have thought that quaint little hobby would turn into such a magnificent career? Your father, bless his soul, would have been so pleased. Her words were laced with an obvious attempt to reclaim a connection, to bask in Tanya's reflected glory, perhaps even to solicit a favor. Mr. Blackwood, always the pragmatist, hinted at potential family collaborations or investment opportunities. Tanya, however, met their feigned warmth with a calm, unwavering gaze. There was no anger, no bitterness in her eyes, only a quiet, profound sense of self-possession. Thank you, Martha, she replied softly, gently stepping back from the attempted embrace. My peace and my work are not for sale. I have found my purpose and I cherish the quiet dignity of building something of my own, free from conditions or expectations. Her gentle refusal was absolute, a powerful declaration of independence that left Martha sputtering and Mr. Blackwood looking visibly discomfited, their attempts to infiltrate her newfound success firmly rebuffed. The climax arrived with the grand unveiling of Tanya's new collection, a series of exquisite, unique furniture pieces for Mr. Harrison's private gallery. Each piece, crafted from reclaimed wood and infused with Tanya's singular vision, resonated with a palpable sense of history and enduring beauty. At the exhibition, Tanya stood quietly beside her creations, radiating a profound, yet humble, confidence. She was no longer the overlooked girl, but a celebrated artisan, her spirit luminous, her worth undeniable. Eleanor, beaming with pride, shared Tanya's entire journey with the assembled guests, including the poignant story of the hidden letters in the chest, a testament to her father's unspoken love, which Eleanor spoke of as Tanya's true, invaluable inheritance. Tanya Willis, the quiet girl from Vermont who had been excluded from her adoptive parents' will, now stood at the pinnacle of her craft, an integral, celebrated force within Vance Artisanal. She was no longer just an artisan, she was a visionary, revered for her unique talent, her profound integrity, and her ability to breathe life into the forgotten. Her journey had not simply led her to a job, it had revealed a true calling, a profound sense of purpose that resonated deeply within her soul. The quiet girl who had once felt like an outsider, navigating a world that often failed to see her, had now found not only a vibrant, supportive community but also a true sense of belonging, a chosen family forged in shared passion and mutual respect. The estate sale, once a painful symbol of exclusion and loss, had become a pivotal turning point, a powerful catalyst for a magnificent new beginning. It was not the grand house or the inherited wealth that had defined her destiny, but a dusty wooden chest, a collection of old tools, and the quiet courage to pursue an unseen value. Her true inheritance was not found in legal documents, but in the profound self-worth she had unearthed, the love she had finally understood, and the ability to transform the discarded into the divine. Tanya's story is a profound reminder that true value often hides in plain sight, dismissed by those who judge only by external appearances. It teaches us that compassion, genuine curiosity, and the willingness to take an unconventional risk can unlock unimaginable potential, transforming lives not just for the individual, but for an entire ecosystem around them. It is a testament to the enduring power of resilience, the quiet strength found in dignity, and the profound truth that what one is denied by fate can often be surpassed by the strength of one's own spirit and the generosity of those who truly see. This story asks us all to look deeper, beyond the surface, beyond the obvious. It implores us to challenge our own preconceived notions, to question who we overlook and why. What unseen potential, what undiscovered talent, what hidden treasure lies within the quiet person beside you, waiting for a compassionate glance, a moment of recognition, a genuine question? What quiet hero, what unsung visionary might be waiting, just like Tanya, for someone to truly listen to their unseen language? Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that true worth is intrinsic, that destiny is often found not in what we inherit, but in what we choose to create. Comment below. When was the last time you saw hidden value where others saw none? How did that change everything? Let Tanya's journey be a beacon, a gentle whisper that reminds us to never underestimate the quiet strength of an overlooked heart, for it is often in the shadows that the most brilliant lights begin to glow.